world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes. An elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad. Welcome back to the IP Squad, our ongoing investigation to the Alien and Predator franchises, and the one they come to together, which is already passed.
Look, enjoy it while it lasted, because it's already gone.
Yeah. Do you think, here's a question. I'm John Campbell, of course, that voice you hear is my partner for this investigation, Mike Gargoni.
Oh, hey, me.
Do you think they'll ever make another Alien versus Predator movie?
Yeah.
It feels inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Or like a limited series or something?
Or something. I mean, we've had the guys who are doing the most recent iterations on those films talk about like, oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hard plans where that's concerned, but it feels like a pendulum that will eventually swing back in that direction, right?
These franchises are intrinsically linked, regardless of if they're actually making crossovers. So as they become more popular again with the different new iterations, somebody is going to go, put them back together.
Yeah. Now, whether or not that will be of any significant quality,
I hold out no hope. It just, we know it can be done because, of course, it has been done in comics and novels and video games and things like that. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem like anyone's ever putting their best foot forward with this. Anyway, that has nothing to do with. I just was thinking that as we mentioned.
It'll be a Disney Plus limited series, and I look forward to it.
That's what I do feel like it will probably be. And actually, I think a big thing will be is if Alien takes off as a TV property with this new show.
Totally.
We'll see if that becomes a thing. But anyway, we're here to talk about 2017's Alien Covenant.
Yep.
It's
a movie.
A Prometheus sequel where Ridley Scott was bullied into putting more alien elements into it.
It's a Prometheus sequel that basically gets forced to be an Alien prequel as well.
Because you saw his original plan was, if you read Ridley Scott's comments on this, his initial plan after Prometheus was to move even farther away from he thought that little beat at the end of Prometheus with the, proto-alien was going to be it. And then it was going to be all engineer stuff going forward.
Good. I think that would have been a better film.
But then when there was a lot of negativity about Prometheus, Fox was like, this is going to kind of be the difference between this movie happening or not.
Yeah. And look, this film, Alien Covenant, is burdened by the creative needs of Ridley Scott and the financial needs of the studio, right? And where they met is this kind of jumbled mess that is neither one nor t'other.
Right.
And it creates a movie that feels like it's being played tug of war over in a way. And I know we're sort of in the era of that kind of movie where these franchises are concerned.
No, I mean,
and
you can really...
It's going to get worse before it gets better.
You can really feel that tension in almost every part of this movie, right?
Yeah, because you have a cast that, no offense to the actors here, outside of Michael Fassbender, are people that we're pulling in because we need bodies to stack up.
And it's a shame because, like is often the case with these, all, for the most part, really good actors.
Yeah. Catherine Watterson, Billy Crudup, Danny McBride. Well, Danny McBride's such an interesting, weird standout in this movie.
But at the same time, like with a lot of these, brings personality just because he's Danny McBride, but they don't do anything with him.
Right. Other than him being like, hey, you all like Danny McBride, right? We all saw Pineapple Express.
Yeah. You've got Demian Bashir, who I love. Carmine Ejogo, who we just saw was really good on The Penguin.
Mm-hmm.
Amy Seimetz, who's an actress I love. See our previous episode about the Pet Cemetery remake. Hear me just love up on her because she's really good in that. She has nothing to do here.
No, I mean most of the actors don't.
No, I mean really.
Um,
I like we said. This is without question the Michael Fassbender show.
yeah, I mean considering they double cast him in this film
Yeah,
as David and what's the other one's name? Walter.
Walter. Yeah. I gotta say, dude always makes interesting choices. The idea that Walter is not only American but a very weird choice of like kind of down here, almost heading to like surfer guy kind of voice.
I'm not quite sure where to place his accent. It
Yeah.
was like if one of the settings on Siri was like generic Midwestern man.
Yeah, they just say American accent in the thing, and I'm just curious if I was trying to see if there was any like touchstones Fassbender mentioned. It is such a weird voice, and he's so fucking good. These movies don't deserve how good he is because the idea too that he's also playing him less human because that was the idea was David was disturbing because he was too human, so he's a little bit more robotic and yes, and even the flatness of the accent kind of has that like I'm from nowhere, I'm just robot guy, like
Can I make the supposition that no movie deserves Fassbender and maybe Michael Fassbender
is too good
is
for
a theater
movies.
actor who got out somewhere?
Is too good for movies. I mean, I will say this movie is right on the cusp of. There was a very distinct time where Fassbender. They tried to make Fassbender a movie star because I get it. He's also a very handsome, fit dude. But every movie star vehicle they put him in was shit and not his fault. But I mean, Assassin's Creed. We'll talk about on an upcoming season when we do video game movies. Gonna have to have you on for that one, Gergoni, because you're the
I'm
person I
on
know
for
who.
Assassin's Creed.
Well, because you're the person I know who knows the most about Assassin's Creed mythology. So
Oh boy. Okay.
yeah, um,
It is weird. I'll give you
yeah,
that.
but like that the snowman is it seemed like a great idea. Get him in like one of those dark, detective novel series movies, but that didn't work out.
Sure. Or what if we did Macbeth, but it was like more of a historical action film, a la like King Arthur from years back?
Actually, I really like that Macbeth. I think that Macbeth kind of rules.
Sure, but like, is it the like star vehicle they
Well,
wanted for him?
no, I think the thing is that's closer to what he should be doing because I think he was great in Steve. I think he was great as Steve Jobs. He and Ridley Scott made another movie called The Counselor that no one saw because it is one of the bleakest, meanest crime movies. I love it, but I understand why people didn't go to it. It is such a bummer of a movie, and it is so
Uh,
cruel. But and of course,
the Neil Marshall movie Centurion is like totally
oh
my jam, like
yeah,
Roman centurion on a mission
I
kind of a
saw
thing.
that, and also he was. I think we can. I think we would both agree the best thing in every one of those X-Men movies.
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
so
his Magneto is
even in the
one of the few things I would really hope they salvage, like going forward with whatever X-Men
one
stuff they do.
because like even in the lesser ones when you get into the Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix stuff, the Magneto stuff is still fantastic.
Magneto stuff is the best thing in Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, and I think it's not given he's not given enough screen time, but he has the highlights of Dark Phoenix as well.
Yeah, no, like him screaming at God after his daughter dies.
It might be my favorite Magneto scene on film is him just going, "Is this what you want me to be?"
Yeah.
You just like, yeah, but that's the thing where it's just like, man, this guy. I think I've recommended before on here, but watch The Killer from 2023, the David Fincher movie. He's incredible in it as just a real deal portrayal of a sociopath. Like he taught himself not to blink for long stretches of time and stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm really enjoying The Agency, which is the TV show he's doing right now on Paramount, which people should check out. But yes, this guy is one of our best actors. And I remember for a while, I think it might have been How Did This Get Made that said this. Is Michael Fassbender the best actor with the worst agent? because he just gets
Yeah.
so many projects built around him. Or like, oh man, and every review was like, why is he in this? He's so good.
And Alien Covenant double dips into the Fassbender, having
Well,
him play two characters that share long scenes together, and
yeah.
it is so riveting to watch.
No, it's a real indictment against your film when you're like, finally, just give me two Fassbenders. But it does feel like Ridley did know from the first movie. Oh well, people really liked Fassbender. We'll bring him back, and in fact, two of him this time, please. Double the order.
Do it
of
again,
Fassbender.
double it.
Yeah, that's it. Because other than Guy Pearce in the very first scene of this movie, he's the only actor who returns from Prometheus.
Yeah, I mean, we have a photo of what's her name
Noomi
from
Rapace.
the first movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and like, is the dialogue that we hear from her, like her singing that song, that's not her, right? It can't be. There's no way they'd pay her to come back and just sing a song.
I don't think so.
And yeah, and she's like killed off screen. It's
here's the thing. Apparently, she did film, and so that may be her. A short promotional video. This movie has even more online-only content that sets it up, because we got to talk about the presence of James Franco, or the lack of presence of James Franco in this movie. That is all in the very, almost like Guy Pearce on the first one. If you watch the webisodes or whatever they made to promote this movie, that's heavy on Franco.
Because Franco is playing Catherine Waterston's character Daniels, her husband, right?
Yeah, who was the captain of this ship.
Right, of course.
Jacob Branson, according to Wikipedia.
When does all the Franco stuff start coming out?
Well, okay, here's the thing that's also confusing. They used a lot of the what do you mean? His personal issues?
Yeah.
After this.
Okay, I'm wondering if like a lot of his stuff got cut because of that or not. But no,
I don't think so. Because I think he still does.
Well, 2014 is when the first accusations come out.
Yeah, but I mean,
and then 2018 is when the LA Times stuff.
Yeah, Disaster Artist though was later this year, and he got a lot of accolades and stuff for that. So I don't think his career was hurt by this point. But I think it's just one of those weird things. But here's the other thing you remember, because if you remember, they used the prologue stuff that they put online in the trailers. Franco was in the trailers, which was shitty of them to do that.
Well, look, there's a lot that's misleading about this film. Let's start with the poster.
The poster that's just like, it's Alien, baby!
Yeah, the poster, right? I mean, maybe we even start before that. We start with the title. It's called Alien.
Yeah, I think that was a non-negotiable for Fox as well. Was like, this isn't called Prometheus Covenant. It's called Alien Covenant. No more fucking around, Ridley. You're making an Alien movie, buddy.
Okay. I'm gonna count the xenomorphs on this poster here.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that I can count, and there's more in like the weird, like textured background.
Yeah. But there are two kind of in the movie.
There's two, and they're not they're consecutive. They're not happening at the same time.
And can we talk about what they're doing in the poster is killing engineers, almost being like, put that shit aside.
Yeah, and look, there is a lot of engineer death in this movie, that's for sure.
But committed by a robot.
Committed by a robot. The xenomorph is, at least according to this movie, an invention of that robot, which upsets me to no end. I
don't like that at all. We were talking about, neither one of us had heard. I saw this in the theater and then I've never seen it again. But both of us were talking about we don't really remember this movie. I had forgotten that it was literally David who created them.
And how that completely doesn't make any sense if you want to line it up with the first Alien film. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, no sense. But that's always been the Ridley. We were talking about that was always the Ridley Scott idea about these things were engineered.
Yeah,
like why?
Again, talking about a movie that John hasn't seen yet, but that might be
Romulus,
further
yeah.
retconned down the road.
Well, it's a
So
fascinating thing, right? Because Romulus, and then you have Noah Hawley talking about alien Earth is going to actively ignore anything in these movies. So this
which
is we're getting into the kind of stuff I wanted to do on the IP Squad, which is levels of canon and continuity in franchises. I also say strap in, folks, because next season is going to be a fucking roller coaster with the franchise we're doing in terms of continuity. Um,
so we have let us consider Alien Covenant as we speak about it in this episode, and
mhm.
then never again. I'll
Yeah,
say that
well, no, I
much.
think Prometheus and Alien Covenant have basically been eradicated from.
No,
Okay.
gonna leave it there, but no.
Well, I think actually one of the big well, because Ridley Scott is still a producer on Alien Romulus.
Hmm.
Um, at least, well, I think one of the interesting question would be then, will Alien Earth and Alien Romulus be connected to each other?
I highly doubt it, but we'll see.
Just based on how much Noah Hawley has been like, yeah, Prometheus and Alien Covenant have nothing to do with this, and it's
Right.
all about Wayland and stuff. So
I'm not gonna get into it too much because
no,
I
no,
don't
yeah,
want to spoil stuff
we'll get
for
there in
you.
a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But okay, let's get into this movie then, which is very much we keep there really are these sections too. There's the two Alien movies, the two Predator movies, two more Alien movies. Then they come together. Then they break apart. There's Predators. Then there's this little duology. Then it's like you can really section off these things. This is for a while when Ridley Scott is making his Prometheus series, and he still keeps talking about, I still want to finish that trilogy. You're like, no,
There's no trilogy here to. I mean, okay,
that's the
this movie
thing.
does end on a cliffhanger, I guess.
But that's the biggest thing that strikes me about this is if in this idea that he goes 3, maybe 4 movies I had arced out, I'm like, well, you clearly took a sharp turn because this does not feel like part 2 of a storyline that really started in Prometheus, except for the David stuff.
I was gonna say what this is the David duology.
Right.
This is the story of a robot who, in an attempt to understand his creation and his creator, becomes a creator unto himself and submits to evil.
But he was giving his in all the interviews he was giving around. Oh, David's descent into full on supervillainy is insane. But he was talking in all the press about Prometheus. He was saying Dr. Elizabeth Shaw is the protagonist of this new trilogy. The next movie will follow her on her next adventure, and then she dies off screen.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah,
she won't. That would be interesting.
yeah,
That would be a fascinating turn if, like, we got to this planet and it turns out both she and David are still alive and, like, at a war with each other.
yeah. Although, yeah, absolutely. Maybe that would maybe no, that can't though because she's definitively dead in this, isn't she?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
She's
So it's like
definitively dead.
yeah, yeah. Which does kind of feel shitty if I cared about Elizabeth Shaw, but just from which I don't, so it doesn't really matter. But just because they don't do anything. But I'm just saying, like, it's an interesting thing where if that had been the case, then this would be kind of like the shitty just cast off of Hicks and Newt, except it doesn't matter because I wasn't endeared to her, and it's just clear this franchise is a mess. The idea that this was some sort of grand vision of what Ridley Scott was talking about. I'm going to make 3 to 4 movies that will then all the way seed into. His whole idea was you would have like 3 to 4 movies, and then you would just be able to slide into Alien.
And look, maybe that's the case, but you're immediately derailed by a film called Alien Covenant, which again feels as though the studio got its hands on it and said, no,
Yeah,
this can't be a Prometheus 2. This has to be an Alien movie. We need those big black
yeah.
bugs, the xenomorphs. And if we can't get there in this film, you're not making this film.
I mean, once again, it's so the Wikipedia for this is unintentionally funny because it's all the stuff Ridley Scott said during the press tour of Prometheus. He expressly said, "No, there will be no xenomorphs in Prometheus 2. Not a one. That's not where we're going with this." And then very quickly, he's like, "Actually, there's going to be xenomorphs because specifically of the negative reaction to Prometheus."
Which, look, I don't necessarily blame him for that because, like we talked about last week, Prometheus is kind of a mess, and what people were expecting versus what they got were two very different things. And if you were going to make a weird sci-fi franchise about like contemplating our position in the universe and like these ancient alien ideas that he seems so obsessed with, just completely divorce it from the Alien franchise,
Well,
but
that's
understand that when you do that, a studio isn't going to back you.
that's the thing, because I do feel like there was at the time there was some reaction to this movie of like, oh well, this is an improvement on Prometheus at least. I don't think it is, because even though Prometheus is not a good movie, he is trying to do something new, and this one feels cynical. This one feels like, despite the fact it's still beautifully shot, I think Ridley Scott is incapable of making a bad looking movie. But it does feel like his heart's just not in this movie.
Besides The Martian, has he made another sci-fi film?
No, that's
I
the only.
guess technically he's directed a couple episodes of Raised by Wolves, which is like very what I was talking about in terms of like
Well, that
a
was a real
disconnected sci-fi thing.
that was a project that was all Ridley's, like that was a real passion project for him. That unfortunately did not, well, got caught up in the bullshit of Warner Brothers being handed off to people, and I think just
Yeah.
but that we talked about that on the Prometheus episode too. Raised by Wolves is much closer to like an unshackled Ridley Scott space robot, science fiction thing. But no,
Yeah, and obviously like a lot more Blade Runner is tied into that and stuff.
Well,
and
that's where
yeah.
he really wanted. That's why he was interested in the David character. He really wanted to get into concepts of AI, and I mean, what you can still see these ideas he's trying to get to, right? Of this like, we don't know what created us, but we created the machines, so the machines know who created them. But then the question is, well, what created you? I mean, that's the first scene in this movie, right? Is him asking Guy Pearce, Peter Wayland, well, you created me. What created you?
But then immediately in that interaction, you have David acknowledging his superiority to his own creator.
Right, but you will die and I will not.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first scene of this movie, I want to see the rest of that movie. That's a pretty good scene with two very good actors too.
Yeah, again, that's the Fassbender of it all, right? Like any scene with him, he's carrying the film, and then any scene without him, we're wondering, hey, where's Poochie?
Everyone should be asking, where's David? So once again, the other thing I think is very interesting is Ridley Scott originally developed this movie and announced the title as Alien Paradise Lost was his original title for this.
Sure.
Which I mean makes a lot of sense for once again the kind of movie he wanted to make.
Yeah, and there's like a religious overtone to this film about like finding paradise, what it means to establish a new way of life, quote unquote.
Yeah.
There's this interesting they don't go into it in the film, but there was an interesting parallel I found as like a history nerd. Yeah. There's this trend in especially like expanding Western civilization, but it happens all over the place after the rise of like fundamentalist Christianity in like the 1800s and the 1700s, is this kind of like cult mentality of like transports of like some fundamentalist sect settling down somewhere and being like, we know how to build a better society due to our beliefs. Yeah. We're gonna pick up with a few dozen people or a couple hundred people, found ourselves an island or some enclave somewhere and create the quote unquote perfect society.
It's
obviously,
yeah, that's actually the plot of Ron Howard's next movie.
Sure, and it's also the plot of M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
Well, and actually the thing that's doing that extremely well right now, I think, is the Apple TV Foundation series.
Yep, absolutely. But this film seems like it's dancing towards some of those ideas, but never actually engaging with them, because there's all this setup in the film about this colony ship, the Covenant.
Yeah.
And it's got a religious name to it already. You've got this guy who's thrust into captainhood who has a religious bent to him.
But the interesting thing about that is he seems to be the outlier in the group as the religious person. They keep making a point about it's unusual that this guy has faith, and that's Billy Crudup's character.
Mm-hmm. But we also have this whole discussion in the film about creators and createes and what a creator's like responsibility is to what they create, and like what they even if they even should be creating something new out of nothing.
Yeah, it's this and Prometheus suffer from similar problems in like I understand what you want to get at, but you're not actually saying anything. Like I see what the themes are, but you're like, okay, and
Yeah. Well, the and in this film is muddled by the fact that David has to go full supervillain,
yeah,
and by the end of the film, it's like, no, any act of creation is inherently
right. It because the problem with both of these movies is they're very Ridley Scott. I mean, is a legend of science fiction. Even though, as we point out, he actually has only made a handful of science fiction movies. But this idea, he's a very heady filmmaker, but he's always forced to turn these into haunted house movies by the end of them. The third act will always descend into somebody is running from a big scary monster. And that's just the nature of what the studio is asking for. So whatever ideas he has have to basically just be severed or greatly simplified to get to, thing chasing us.
Yeah, obviously the outlier in that discussion is The Martian, which is its own thing. It's more hard sci-fi and more like marooned man story.
I mean,
right?
it's actually a really different movie for Ridley Scott. But it's an interesting thing but famously, one of his best movies, my personal favorite movie, his Blade Runner, was not financially successful at the time because it was too heady for audiences, I think.
Yeah. So it seems like he has the worst luck when it comes to when he finally gets around to expressing these like large psychological ideas he has about the nature of man and their place in the universe. When it comes to these larger than life sci-fi concepts, he just kind of gets screwed by studio meddling and box office returns.
There's a reason why he is always like, no, I don't want to fucking direct Star Wars.
Yeah.
Of course you don't. He doesn't want to work in that,
Well, because Star Wars is pop sci-fi, right? Whereas what he's trying for is something like 2001.
Yeah, I think that's a big influence, no question for him. I mean, Kubrick in general is, I think, a big hero of Ridley Scott's, and you can see that. The interesting thing about him is I think he's got a little bit more populist in him than Kubrick, but less than James Cameron when we talk about the directors of this franchise.
Sure.
Where James Cameron is very much like, ideas are very, very, very broad, and it's spectacle.
Yeah. Whereas Ridley Scott feels like someone who, if he had his druthers, would be expressing ideas like Arthur C. Clarke or Asimov, right? Yeah. And just like trying to convey that in film is hard, and doing it within a studio system is even harder, and getting people to see it after that fact is harder still.
I do think it's very interesting that he is hypercritical of Blade Runner 2049 when most people like it, but I do think it's like, are you just mad that Denis Villeneuve is having the career you wanted to have? Because, like, Villeneuve...
Because that's basically Denis Villeneuve's whole career, right?
Right. He's found a way to make heady sci-fi populist. He's kind of found the key in his films are really interesting because but they're very popular, too. He's got a real smart balance. That guy impresses me. But the idea that he's like, I didn't think 2049 turned out that well. And I was like, oh, shut up, Ridley. What are you talking about? I should have directed it. Maybe it's better you didn't, actually. Anyway, so this movie, because very quickly, the other thing this is just such a weird movie. And I think a lot of it stems from reading the production history of it. This was a movie that I think had 4 screenwriters, like major screenwriters come in on it. All to bring in different, somebody wrote a Prometheus sequel. I do love, there's a quote from Lindelof going, they didn't ask, but I really wasn't gonna do another one anyway. Like, he goes, it would have been hard if Ridley had asked me to say no to Sir Ridley, but I'm kind of glad, it's like, I didn't think, because I don't think he had a great time on Prometheus. But so they hired Jack Paglin was the first guy, or Jack Paglin, who wrote, do you remember the movie Transcendence, where Johnny Depp became a computer program?
Oh, God. Only vaguely.
Yeah. But anyway, that was a huge bomb. That was sort of a heady sci-fi. Johnny Depp dies. uploads himself, his consciousness into a computer. It's this whole message about what is alive, and it's an okay movie, but anyway. He was hired. Then they brought in Michael Green, which is interesting. Michael Green goes on to write Blade Runner 2049, and then they brought in Dante Harper, and then all of it got rewritten by John Logan, who had written Gladiator for Ridley Scott. But so it sounds like, from the sound of it though, is like this guy brought in the heady sci-fi stuff. This guy brought in this. And then Logan was brought in at the end to kind of mesh it all together.
Try to smooth it out.
And the movie really feels like that, though. You can feel these disparate pieces. The movie just doesn't flow very well.
Well, because you have two, maybe three distinct sections of the film, right? Mm-hmm. So the first section is we have the crew of the Covenant all waking up to a stellar disaster, which requires them to band together after their captain, James Franco, who's not in the film, really, dies.
The only dialogue of James Franco is in a recorded video message where he's hanging off of a cliff wall going, "Hey, I love you, Catherine Waterston."
Whoa, we're on a cliff.
And I remember sitting in the theater and going, that's it? That's because at this point, it's like, that's a major movie star. What? Why?
Then they get the distress signal that brings them to the planet where they find David. Then you have them initially on the planet poking their nose where it doth not belong.
You just can't. You just can't not in these movies.
No. And that's when we get introduced to the neomorphs and the backburster and all that stuff.
Oh
God! The weird pods with the black goo dust in it.
That are all just Michael Fassbender's mad science.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just like he's just like, well, I've been at it for years, just making monsters.
This is the Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
Oh, 100% it is.
And if you pitch me Isle of Dr. Moreau starring Michael Fassbender, I'm 100% there.
Actually, yeah, give me that movie right now. Here is a check. You write down what you think is fair. Because he would kill that, man. Could you imagine it would be this times 10. The monologues he would have about creationism and stuff. Oh, boy.
Totally.
Yeah, actually make that movie. Do Island of Lost Souls with him. Anyway, I just want to read, because I think this is a great example of what I'm talking about. This is a quote from John Logan about writing this movie, all right? With Alien Covenant, I just really wanted to write something that had the feel of the original Alien, because seeing that movie was one of the great events of my youth. It was so overpowering in terms of what it communicated to me and its implications, that when I started talking to Ridley about what became of Alien Covenant, I said, that was a hell of a scary movie. I wanted to write a horror movie because the grand guignol elements of Alien are so profound. We tried to recapture that with Alien Covenant while also trying to pay homage to the deeper implications of Prometheus. In terms of tone, pace, and how we chose to play this particular symphony, we wanted to create a really frightening movie. This movie's not scary. If that was the goal, I don't really think this movie is scary.
Yeah. I mean, the scariness from this film, if there is any, is in a sort of Isle of Dr. Moreau kind of existential, like, oh, what hath man created, and then that thing created something else hath created.
Yeah, that's, once again, that movie sounds, even the idea of space, Island of Dr. Moreau with robot Michael Fassbender, that sounds like a cool movie, but actually, the idea of the spaceship, the idea of what the Covenant mission is gone over, but I remember it more from the trailers where they talked about this is a ship full of couples that are not only transporting themselves, but also embryos to basically, repopulate or to populate a new society on this planet they've discovered.
That's all implied in the film. I haven't watched any of the mini-sodes that were released on the web, I don't.
All of those were directed, by the way, by Luke Scott, Ridley's son, who directed a bunch of them. Well, I'm not saying, but it's just like that. Okay. But the thing is, I remember that from the trailer. James Franco in the trailer talked about, this is a ship of couples, and this is what we're doing. Because one of the minisodes is their last dinner before they go into the cryopods,
which we see the picture of at the end of this movie.
Right. And then so they shot that scene, and that was the beginning of the trailer, which I do think is but it's like, that speaks to, I only know, because I'm watching the movie, once again, not quite remembering. I'm going, Well, where's that scene where Franco explains what the mission? Oh, it's not in here because it's in a web exclusive. Well, that's not
Yeah.
good. You shouldn't be doing that. That's bad filmmaking.
But it's not relevant to the film as exists, right?
That's also a problem, right? Like,
This idea of covenant
yeah,
is the name of the ship, and it is expressed through this idea that, okay, the crew of the ship is made up of couples. There's some probably psychological space mission reason for introducing married couples as our crew, whether it be they're more loyal to each other, they're less inclined to like fool around with each other and compromise the mission, whatever. None of that is ever explained. None
no.
of that is even touched on. We only get the sense that these people are coupled off through dialogue, which I kind of liked up until you make it the title of the movie.
Well, that's the thing. And the other thing is that for what the plot of the film is, it kind of doesn't matter, right? It's just,
No.
they could have just been a crew. They could have been what they were in the first movie. You just needed people to land on Michael Fassbender's scary monster planet.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that Daniel's husband dies and then is replaced by Billy Crudup's character is compelling.
It almost
on a character level,
yeah. I was
it
gonna
is
say, like,
inconsequential ultimately.
on paper, I'm interested in Crudup's character as like, hey, I'm not supposed to be the guy in charge. That's an interesting character beat for him. Nothing really comes of it, and Crudup has nothing to play in this movie. He has
the
a
fact
couple
that he
moments.
doesn't have a bigger reaction when his character's wife dies is kind of wild to me.
Danny McBride gets more of a emotional breakdown about his wife dying than Crudup does.
I mean, the wildest part is I didn't get to like what the third act of this movie is, which is the part of the movie where I paused it like right after they get off the planet. I'm like, wait, there are 25 minutes left in this movie? What the hell?
I had the same thought because they've already done their big action set piece where Catherine Waterston is hanging off the ship and shooting at an alien. And actually, I'm like, that movie's cool. The problem is it's deep into this movie, and the rest of the movie had to stop to get some action in. It's good action because Ridley Scott knows what he's doing, but you're like, what? And then it just turns into the end of Alien.
Yes. Yeah. And so they have to like trick yet another xenomorph into an airlock and jet into space.
And also, was that meant to be a twist that Walter was really David? Because of course it was.
I mean, they play it as a question mark at the end of the second act when the two Fassbenders are tussling.
Yeah.
And one's got a knife and one's got a rock and they're on top of each other.
Maybe my favorite part of the movie is the Fassbender on Fassbender fight scene. Kind of rules.
It's a fight spender, yeah.
I mean, it's very Star Trek, two Kirks battling. Na 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 na.
Well, you couldn't have one of them do like the double-fisted hammer blow, or else they would just won instantly.
Yeah. No, that's a finisher. The Kirk finisher, man. You just can't.
Yeah. That's how you take out a Gorn.
Yeah. That's how I beat the Gorn. But
I mean, it was... I think it is supposed to be like a surprising twist, especially when we get these reactions from him throughout the like we need to get the alien in the airlock scene.
Yeah.
When he's going like, "Oh, I'm glad they're alive."
Yeah, but
which doesn't make any sense to me if that turns out to be David all along.
Well, because why is he making those reactions? No one's around him. He's doing that for the audience.
Why does he care about preserving Danny McBride or Catherine Waterston?
Yeah, because that's the big, of course, jumping to the end of the movie, right? That's our big, like, hook, you know, our horror movie ending is they're going back into cryosleep and Catherine Waterston realizes, oh no, it was David. I mean, Fassbender's having fun when he does this little goodbye.
I'll tuck in the children.
Yeah, I am like, well, I will say, as much as I still love what Fassbender's doing, his character, all the nuance is gone. He's just like, I'm evil now in this movie.
Well, especially when he starts puking up facehugger embryos.
Which is crazy, but yeah, just him going, go.
It was a nice little like last horror beat in this movie.
It
is,
like,
oh my god.
But once again, the idea that this was the sequel of Prometheus, where we talked about one of the reasons that character was interesting was you really, he seemed conflicted. We're conflicted about him. And the idea in this movie is just like, I'm going to make monsters now.
Yeah, and especially once we get the reveal that like he was the one who killed Nomi
Numi Rapace, yeah.
Nomi Rapaz's,
Dr.
I can never
Shaw.
say her last name.
Yeah.
He was the one who ultimately killed Dr. Shaw in
Yeah.
like a furtherance of his abomination experiments.
Yeah, I mean, because when they land on this planet, we get this whole scene where he seems to be their savior, right? He comes and saves them from aliens that are trying to kill them.
The neomorphs, yeah.
Yeah, and takes him back to his lair, where of course he's got a fucking crazy blonde wig on, of course, because it's just everything in this movie is just weird. But and he's doing this thing where he's like, "I landed here with Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, and she was my friend." But of course, you're like, "Oh no, he was experimenting on her."
Mm-hmm.
Which also just once again, if you had any investment in that character, which I didn't, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not. But if you did, then this movie is also like, fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, it does the whole Alien 3 thing all over.
Yeah.
It's like, remember those characters you were maybe kind of attached to? Again, pretending you were attached to the characters from Prometheus at all.
No, that's the thing. It's like, but I'm yeah, just looking at it broadly, you're supposed to be. So by that logic, I didn't because who cares? There was no reason to care about any of this. Apparently, I didn't see that one. I did see the Last Supper prologue, but the other prologue was called The Crossing, and that had Elizabeth Shaw and David.
And was that just them being like, hey, we did it. We killed all the engineers. Way to go. High five.
I think maybe that was the idea. And then, then there was a third one that was an advertisement for the Walter series of androids called Meet Walter.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that was a sequel promotion to
Yeah.
the Meet David promotions from Prometheus.
Yeah. By the way, here's a fun note. The version of this film released in China was 6 minutes shorter and cut out the scene where Michael Fassbender kissed the other Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, because the Chinese media market will not abide gay stuff.
Even though you're like, this goes beyond homosexuality. Because it's two robots who look like each other.
No, like whatever's going on there.
Yeah, it's not gay. It's way weird. Yeah.
There's a level of masturbation to that, because what David is really appreciating is a version of himself that he wants to make out with. The idea that they're
two male-presenting robots is the least of the conversation there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that, and of course, a lot of it, they talk about they basically cut out almost any shots of the xenomorphs, which would make this movie really weird to watch. They're barely seen.
The Chinese market did?
Yeah.
Why?
Most of the scenes involving the aliens, I have no. They're weird about stuff over there.
Is it a skeleton reason? Because I know that's a whole thing in the Chinese market. You can't have skeletons.
And ghosts. You're not allowed to have ghosts. Not that that's part of this. But like, there's a lot of none of the Ghostbusters movies have ever been shown over there. They don't. Yeah, the Chinese censorship, and by the way, when I say they're weird over there, I mean the censorship board, not the people. I'm sure people would be fine watching that.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. Anyway, but so when they show up, and so he's just evil though. Like I said, just the idea that he's also misleading them and lying to them. We get more super morons running around on this crew.
They're less explicitly moronic than the scientists and professionals from Prometheus, because these are just like ship crewmen.
Well, and apparently if you read the novelization by Alan Dean Foster, there's an explanation as to like they couldn't even get the top people, which I'm like, I love the idea that they're like, hey, we're going to write these characters incredibly stupid. Alan Dean Foster, here's why you can explain why everyone's acting like an idiot in this movie.
I'd say the only character who like explicitly does something like incredibly stupid. Because like, landing on an alien world that you really have no about, that's just top level
and walking
dumb,
around out there, even though you can breathe the air, the idea that you still wouldn't be in some sort of containment suit for what happens in this movie where the thing gets in the guy's ear.
Because airborne pathogens are a thing. Yeah.
Fucking idiots.
But, sure. But assuming that like baseline, we got to land on an alien world is a thing that has to happen. I think all the decisions that are made after the fact are pretty up and up, except for
Crudo?
Billy Crudup's character putting his face over an egg.
Just pulling the classic John Hurt, we call that.
Yeah.
And just like not putting his face. I mean, the movie almost like wants you to feel that because he puts his face in and he leans in closer and closer. What? Face hugger.
Yeah, and especially with like weird marooned robot David there going, "You should look at it. It's something wonderful to
Get
behold.
in there. Look, check it out. Now get a closer look.
Why don't you just get a good whiff of that?"
Yeah. Oh, you're gonna want to smell that alien egg, buddy. Trust me, you're gonna want to smell that.
Okay, so again, future reference, we're going to be throwing all of this out the window. But if we just assume that up till this point, Alien Covenant is our quote-unquote canon.
Yes.
This film would have us believe that David, using the black goo that was discovered via the engineers in Prometheus, has then, over the course of, I think it says 10 years that he's marooned here, uses the developments of the black goo to create xenomorph as we know them, eggs, facehuggers, the whole deal.
Right.
How?
But
he says the disease like kills all biological life.
Right.
Not biological life, animal life.
Right. Because we see him. I mean, there's the flashback to when they arrived on the planet where the engineers were from, because that's where they were going at the end of Prometheus, is the last line in that. Elizabeth Shaw says, "I want to see where they rain death upon them."
And let's ignore the fact that an interstellar species has but one planet where all their entire population is in one city.
Yeah. It's thank God there were only like 500 of these guys, you know. Where's the other thing? There's a Ridley Scott quote. I have so much stuff here in the dossier. Here it is. His big reason for making these movies, as he said, was because none of the sequels to the Alien ever bothered to ask the question, why? Who would make such a thing? And I think all of us are just going like, none of us were asking that.
Yeah.
And what are you talking about?
Man, there's so much I want to talk about that has to do with Romulus.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But like the like why didn't they ask the question why? People maybe have latched on to that and like not latched onto it, have completely discarded that going forward. And like obviously the whole Alien Earth and whatever that show ends up being has also discarded this.
Right.
The idea that the xenomorph is a creation has always rubbed me the wrong way, and this movie doubles down on that idea.
Yes.
Because like,
well, because he wants to do this. You know, we created robot created the alien therefore was created by us. We are the instrument of our own destruction, which is not in the themes of Alien as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I've always, and maybe this is just
dumb.
Too much ownership I'm putting over the franchise, but it is something that other bits of the franchise have leaned into, including comics and novels and stuff, is this idea of whatever the quote-unquote perfect organism looks like isn't humans.
Right.
Our imperfections are what make us human. If we strive for protection or for perfection, we become the xenomorph, right? And that's not human anymore.
Well, and that's the thing that's terrifying about it. When they talk about it in the other Alien movies, the idea of it being the perfect evolved thing for pure survival, right? For just that's how it's perfectly evolved. It's perfectly evolved to survive and propagate itself, right? Like that's the thing. Mm-hmm. So that's terrifying because it's functioning at a level that is, it takes morality out of it, takes all feeling,
emotion.
It's all gone. It's the terrifying idea of the alien, right? This thing can't be reasoned with. It exists only to survive and continue its own growth as a species, and it is designed in every way to defend itself, to kill any threat that comes at it.
But the word you use there and what Ridley Scott has latched onto is designed, right?
Right.
It's this intentionality
It has
that
evolved.
is
I should have said. Yeah.
right. But that is where I find more cosmic level horror to it.
Right.
Is this idea that is just what happened naturally
Right.
somewhere out in the universe, is that brute force evolution produced this.
And then the terror in the Alien movies, and from what I gather, from what Noah Hawley has talked about with Alien Earth being this, the idea that once that is seen by people, they're like, that's something we need to control. It's the idea of not that this was designed as a weapon, but that people see this and go, we can use it as a weapon.
Or not even a weapon, but like it's something to be idolized.
Right.
It is that like Lovecraftian, like once you see what lies beyond the yawning pit, you are drawn to it.
It's the thing I do like in the extended cut of Alien 3 with the Paul McGann character like bowing down before it as something to worship. That's the kernel of something that they actually ended up cutting out of that movie that is like one of the only really interesting things in that movie to me, is the idea that you see this thing and go, my God, it is our better. I serve at the feet of this thing.
And there's something to David's character into supervillainy that is that a little bit. Like he witnesses this thing, this ever-evolving mutation, the black goo, and like is drawn to it and is captivated by it and is almost enslaved by the idea of it to produce the xenomorph at the end.
The interesting thing that Ridley Scott says, it's because once he sees the engineers, because he hates humans, he hates the engineers, and you're just like, well, that's really weird, man. It's a weird trajectory for the character.
That's the filmmaker saying something that I don't get from the text of his film, which is always a weird thing to happen.
I was going to bring this up. It's a problem I have with Ridley Scott on a lot of his stuff, because it is the idea about like the idea that I was always wondering who made this. You're just like, really? I wasn't in your movie. The other thing is, and it's certainly more in the movie, this one, but the idea that he is definitively like, oh, well, Deckard's a replicant in Blade Runner. And a lot of the fans, including myself, that's a real bifurcated split on that. But sure. I'm firmly in the camp of no, because if he is, that kind of destroys a lot of the themes of the movie.
And the idea this being film,
that, and one of the things I liked what Villeneuve did is he still doesn't definitively answer that question. It's still up for debate in 2049.
Sure.
And Ford disagrees, but I think it's so interesting that he constantly is going, I'm the guy who made it. I'll tell you what it is.
So when Ridley Scott says that David hates humanity and hates the engineers, I don't see him playing hate in this movie.
No.
I'm seeing disaffected, sociopathic need to like latch himself onto this like perfect organism as he sees it, but I don't see hate.
No, because I see it as, yes, it's that opening scene with Guy Pearce is him going, you created me, but you are imperfect to create me who's perfect. But wait, now I am giving birth to the next thing that's even more perfect in ways, right?
Because the only time we see David express,
which I still don't like,
true rage in this film is when we have the neomorph killed by Billy Crudup's character. When he like shoots the neomorph that's standing in front of him.
Was that Billy Crudup or was that the Demian Bashir character?
That's Billy Crudup.
Oh, Crudup shoots the thing.
Yeah, because that's after that he leads him down to the end.
Yeah. No, wait, hold on. Yes, no, you're right. It is Crudup. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because Demian Bashir then finds Crudup with the chest burster having come out of him.
Right. And was that off mic we were talking about? Then Demian Bashir somehow gets infected with the chest, and it's unclear how.
So, as Demian Bashir and who's the person who's with him? Yet another. I think it's Uli Ladakafu's character, Cole.
Yeah.
They're hunting around for their captain, and they come upon his corpse and also the eggs, and there's some more face huggers crawling around in there. One of them gets onto Damian Bashir. Cole cuts it off with a knife. That's when he gets the acid on his face.
Yeah.
And presumably, given what happens next in the movie, the like 2 seconds that facehugger is on him is enough to put an embryo in him.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that's faster than I've ever thought it was possible. But
again, usually we've seen the gestation period is facehugger gets on them, puts the tube down their throat. They're unconscious for question mark.
yeah,
And then when they wake up, they've still got a little bit of time before the chest burster comes out, but the facehugger is dead on the floor. So
yeah.
time has passed.
Not in this though. These things are fast.
Well, and everything we've seen in Prometheus, everything to do with the black goo, is this like virulent disease that spreads and mutates things, right?
Yeah.
And in Prometheus, it turned people into like super zombies. In this movie, it like infects them and makes the neomorphs come out of them.
Yeah.
And all of it's either you die when you get infected with this stuff, or it mutates and produces something inside of you. Because Dr. Shaw's character in the first movie also gets infected in a roundabout way, and that's when she has like the like proto face hugger come out of her that she gets out via surgery.
Right. Yeah, it just in answering the question why that this man apparently was asking from day one, and I just love the idea of him being at the screenings of sequels and going, "You're still not asking why." But he's in answering that, it's become so complicated.
Yeah,
and particularly from a biological standpoint.
And I'll say this: the thing I'm dancing around with Romulus is an attempt to try to like simplify it in a way that I think kind of acts as a refresher on the ideas that he was trying to Ridley Scott is trying to wrestle with.
Ridley Scott still has a fair amount of creative input from what I gather in Romulus, and Fede Alvarez, who directed that movie, has been complimentary of these films, being like, I didn't want to destroy whereas Noah Hawley's like, fuck that shit, it's over. Alvarez seemed, once again, I haven't seen the movie because I'm purposely waiting to watch it on here, but for first time reaction. But Alvarez seems more like, I wanted to see if there's a world where we could carry some of those themes, some of those ideas, but maybe send it in a new direction.
And he does,
yeah.
I think.
Personally. I mean, because he's still going like, I'm still going to try to kind of finish what Ridley at least began, which is interesting.
I don't know about finishing it. I think he like puts a bow on the messy, complicated stuff that evolves out of introducing the black goo as a concept.
That makes sense with what I've heard him say about what he was trying to do with that movie, was like get it back to what people like, both making Ridley Scott and the fan base happy was, I think, his goal. Was like, can I kind of merge these two things and make a movie that bridges the gap?
Personally, I felt that way having watched.
I know. You've definitely indicated on here you're a fan of that movie.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about when we talked about it. Just know that like over the course of these last two films, it's so hard for me not to spoil.
Right. We're moving. This is our last Alien movie before it, so we'll move into
I know.
Predator territory. So that's good. Yeah.
Once you've seen that movie, you will know what a struggle it has been for me to not wrap that into the conversation around these two films.
Now, there was a prequel novel written by Alan Dean Foster released as Alien Covenant Origins.
God, what a lazy title.
Yeah. Which
sorry, that's just sorry, Alan Dean Foster. You probably didn't write the title.
There's no way he wrote that title. No, Alan Dean. We love an Alan Dean Foster here, especially because of his refusal to write the death of Newt in the novelization. No, man, fuck that shit. I just love that was it. But anyway,
I respect Alan Dean Foster as like the king of movie novelizations.
It's interesting. Apparently, it's a lot of like Yutani stuff in the and then sort of the beginnings of the James Franco and Catherine Waterston characters. By the way, I was just thinking about this. We've barely talked about the Catherine Waterston character, even though she is a ostensibly the protagonist of the movie.
I mean, we've talked about this in the past, the Ripley of it all.
I
She's
was
the
gonna say,
Ripley of this
yeah,
movie.
I was texting somebody about this, and I go, in Catherine Waterston, the unforgettable role of not Ripley.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, by the way, the real crime, the haircut on her in this movie is awful. But I think,
No.
but it's clearly designed to evoke, and I will say, even in the casting of her, she has a very similar build to Sigourney Weaver. She's a tall, lean woman with sort of, and she is very. I mean, she has the features of her father. They look very good on her, but you can see that Sam Waterston's kid. But I'm saying she has a very intense, intelligent presence. Like, it's very clear they went even farther than they've gone before in, like, really, if you squint, she even kind of looks like Sigourney Weaver. And when they give her the short hair.
There's one of the first photos you see of her on IMDb when you click on this movie is
rifle.
Her with blood running in her face with the rifle.
Yeah.
And if you squint from a distance, that could be a pic from Aliens.
And she's got the Covenant jacket that kind of looks like the Nostromo jacket. Yeah. I mean, it's but the problem is, and I love Catherine Waterston. Very interesting. She's also on that show, The Agency, with Fassbender. And they had done Steve Jobs together before this. So clearly they have a strong working relationship, which is great. And I've seen her be great and stuff, but just this is even less of a character than Dr. Elizabeth Shaw in the last movie. What is her deal? She's just a lady.
She's a sad lady.
Yeah.
Whose husband died.
But we didn't talk about that. Burns up inside of the crowd, dude, which is pretty gnarly, I gotta say. That
seems like a design flaw. If fire is going to be inside the cryo tube.
Seems like that shouldn't be possible, but yeah.
Yeah, we never find out like what her job is on the Covenant.
According to Wikipedia, she's the chief of terraforming.
She does say, "Let's bring him to my department," and they bring him into the terraforming.
But boy, does it not matter.
Man, they don't even like give her a scene like on the planet of being like, "Wow, the world here seems like it has been shaped by non-natural hands," or like give her like some technobabble line that has to do with her expertise.
Oh, I also love the scene talking about that. It just reminds me where Demi Bashir goes, "That's wheat. I'd know wheat anywhere."
Why does he know wheat?
Well, another character who's just nothing. His character is nothing. He is chief of security.
Yeah, he's cigar chomping gun guy.
Yeah, and just a waste of a really fucking good actor. And I'm sure
Danny McBride's character is supposed to be the head pilot, right?
Yeah.
And what was Billy Crudup's like original job before he becomes captain? Chief of religious stuff?
Serious man of faith. You know what? It just says he's a man of faith. The Wikipedia doesn't even give him a job on the ship. He is just Guy.
And like Danny McBride's wife, Ferris, is like second pilot?
Yeah, they are the pilot couple.
Okay.
And then...
All right. And then the rest.
Apparently, yeah, because according to this, the other couple who's given at least enough screen time to kind of are...
Rix and Upworth?
Yes, that's it exactly. And
they're like navigation.
Yeah, that's it exactly. They are...
I got that from context clues in the movie.
Yeah, Jussie Smollett is the governance navigator. No comment on what's become of Jussie Smollett in reality. You can look that up yourself. It's sad.
Yeah.
That I hope he gets the help he needs, and I mean that sincerely. He's obviously a troubled man. Upworth is also... They also talk about... And apparently also has paramedics training. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I read it, or I watched, they do those YouTube things like Vanity Fair does them. Actor looks back on their famous roles or whatever. And Danny McBride did one, and he was talking about this. And I'm sure the reason he took this is the same reason everybody did. He goes, I just wanted to watch Ridley Scott work.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's why you go like, why would everybody? Because these are nothing roles. Like he didn't. I also, you gotta love Ridley Scott cast Danny McBride because when I saw him, I thought Slim Pickens.
Okay.
From Dr.
Body type wise,
yeah,
no,
and
like
Southern,
I get
I guess,
it,
but he's just like like Dr. Strangelove. And you're like, well, if you saw that, you didn't really give a Slim Pickens type role. I mean, he has a cowboy hat, but.
And he's called Tennessee, I suppose.
Oh, I do love that. It's like he's called Tennessee. Why? Because he's from Tennessee.
Yeah, and his whole thing is, my wife's down there.
Yeah. And then when they're just like, yeah, she's dead. And he's like, oh, all right. He gets one scene where he's sad, and then he's like, okay.
The third act, when they're back on the spaceship, and it's Danny McBride and Catherine Watterson, and they're both just like, well, we got out of that one, huh?
Yeah.
Punch on the shoulder. You doing okay? Yeah, I guess I'll be all right. Well, everyone I know and love is dead, but you know.
Yeah, they've both lost their individual spouses and presumably everyone else they knew. But hey, man, a fucking tractor impaled a not bad, kind of a cool way to kill the xenomorph ultimately.
Oh, and they crush it with the cargo claw. That was pretty good.
That was good. But yeah, then when she's just like, because he thinks she went out of the ship, and then she's hanging there. She goes, would you give a girl a hand? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, everyone's dead. This mission's over. What is the goal? Why even bother going to the planet?
Well, they still have all the settlers.
Embryos. Well, that's right. Yeah. That's right. All the settlers that are just.
There's thousands of just randos in the back of this ship.
That's right. I keep forgetting that because it doesn't matter.
Like, why not wake up a couple of them once some people are dead?
I forgot that not only do they have the embryos, they have like 2,000 people with them. You never get a sense of that.
I mean, you do at the end when David's walking down the hallway and
oh,
all of these new toys I can play with.
Here's one of my favorite bits of trivia. They shot a take where he did a Nazi goose step down the hall.
Ugh.
And then Ridley was like, too far.
Yeah.
They said, like, we tried to incorporate some kind of Hitler into him. You're like, don't do that. That's a bad idea.
I guess if you're gonna go down the eugenics, like he's trying to create the perfect organism route,
but it is just like, yeah, but just my God, let's really punch people in the face with that.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well have had him okay. Why doesn't he have a beard if his hair grows? Maybe he just doesn't have hair follicles in his face.
I guess maybe that's the idea. So, the end of the movie is, dear God, he's gonna populate this new planet with xenomorphs.
Sure, but how does that lead us to Alien? If that was Ridley Scott's intention.
Well, so here's the crazy thing. I found the section here of possible sequel. Ridley Scott said Prometheus would actually be the prequel to the trilogy that this is the first movie of, is what he came to say during the press for this. So it would have been Prometheus, then the Alien prequel trilogy. So this was chapter 1 that would have been 2 more movies before we get to the events of Alien, according to him.
And would Catherine Watterson and Danny McBride be our two-handers through the whole thing?
He did not say anything about that.
Yeah.
But there's some draft of the next movie that was written during the production of this that, of course, was scrapped by the time,
Sure.
Yeah, but he was ready to roll into production, and he also, God, threatened us. Oh, he does say they would have had Fassbender, Watterson, McBride in the next movie. Okay. But he also said he was toying with the idea of a CGI de-aged Sigourney Weaver eventually coming into this.
No.
I was gonna say he threatened us with that. He goes, well, with CGI, we could bring Sigourney back.
No,
Don't
Ridley, no.
Do
Sir Scott.
That. Yeah, I think that might have stripped him of his knighthood. We'd have to take it back.
End?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know.
No, you know what? I would know exactly what it would be. It would be at the end of whatever the third movie was. Some of this information gets back to Weyland-Yutani, obviously, and then we go to we've got to put together a team of nobodies to just throw out there into the universe so we can bring back some alien eggs, right?
Sorry.
And then we cut to young Ripley.
Yeah, I'm just now reading further what the plot details. So the next movie, which would have been the third or second movie, depending on how you read Ridley Scott's But it would have been the second movie in this new trilogy, would have taken place on LV-426, which is where the Nostromo landed. And it would have featured living engineers chasing David to seek revenge for the genocide he committed against them.
Isn't that sort of the plot of the Fire and Stone comic a little bit?
Yeah, it is a little bit the plot of the Fire and Stone comic, yeah.
I mean, I don't think David's involved, but it is like engineers being pissed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huh.
Yeah. And so eventually all of this, though, then the guy, keep in mind, this is around the same time that they're starting to flirt with Neil Blomkamp's pitch for an Alien movie that would ignore everything but Alien and Aliens. And from what I gather, that was pretty much shut down by Ridley Scott raising a stink.
Oh, that's...
Isn't that kind of a bummer? Because
I don't know. I don't know if that movie would have been good.
I don't know, but I will say that was a more exciting pitch than anything I heard from Ridley Scott.
I guess, but like, are we being threatened with a de-aged Sigourney Weaver at that point?
That wouldn't have been de-aged. That would have been proper old Sigourney Weaver and Michael Biehn.
Yeah, maybe.
I like I said, I think after this one, I was like, maybe we stop. With my attitude coming out of this was like, please stop with the Alien movies. My God. Yeah. And I have not seen Romulus yet. But that was obviously where they ended up going.
Mm-hmm. And Romulus, as we'll get to it, but it is like a more stripped down. We're not worrying about the cosmology of this universe as much.
There did seem to be a reaction of, even in the less positive reviews, of like, well, at least this is back to what I expect when I paid money to see an Alien movie.
Yeah. It's more about like, obviously you don't go fucking with the alien and the xenomorph, and like Weyland-Yutani never learning their lesson about it.
Certainly all the promotion for it really did lean heavily into like, this is back to classic sci-fi horror vibes.
Yeah, in the same way that Prey did in a lot of
they definitely, made under the same regime at the studio, right? Those are the first two made under Fox being owned by Disney.
Yeah.
And
the mandate being back to basics, not the worst instinct.
Oh, no. Because they had a lot they had to do a lot to bring people back, for sure. And I feel like Prey and Romulus, at the very least, regardless of what anyone may think of the individual movies, certainly renewed interest from an audience in those franchises.
Sure.
And
being able to throw around Avengers versus comics doesn't hurt either.
No, I will say.
Or Wolverine versus Predator.
Wolverine versus Predator ruled. I loved that. I loved it so much. I haven't read. Didn't they also do Black Panther versus Predator? I haven't read that one.
I'm not sure.
I haven't. I think they did that one. I feel like I saw. But now they are doing Avengers versus Aliens, which is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in the era of, Batman and Superman versus aliens, and all that stuff was pretty cool.
Sure. Is anything ever going to top Green Lantern versus Alien?
No, because that's the most. They did do Predator versus Black Panther.
Fun.
I see that here. Benjamin Percy, who also did the Wolverine one, did that. I got to read that. No, nothing will because Green Lantern's the most natural fit of the whole bunch, right?
Yeah.
The idea of space cop. That wasn't Hal, that was Kyle Rayner. Just eventually running into xenomorphs is like, oh, we don't even have to like work very hard to justify this.
No, we don't have to bend over backwards like Star Trek meets X-Men or something.
Planet X, man, who could forget? What
if the X-Men were just the species on a planet?
I always bring this up because it's the one I always recommend people read, Star Trek on the Planet of the Apes, because the work they did to make it fit into the continuity of both franchises with no damage is really deserving of some sort of recognition. I don't know what, but the idea that they found the exact moment that those two franchises realistically could have come together is very clever.
Very impressive.
It's I was like, well done. Because I read it going, this will be a lark. And then I'm reading it going, this is extremely well thought out by somebody who knows these franchises as well as I do. So
yeah, as opposed to Planet of the Apes meets King Kong, which is like, oh, well, Skull Island's just right over there.
Yeah, which I did also enjoy, though, because you're like, you had to put the monkey franchises together. You just had to. Yeah. We'll see though. All right, so that's it for Alien until the most recent Alien Romulus. This puts this on storage, puts it in cryosleep for another 7 years.
Before we get too far away from Covenant, I do
Yeah.
want to ask, like, something we didn't even really talk about. What'd you
Yeah.
think of the alien in this movie? Like, what did you think of the creature work here?
It's okay. I wasn't blown
Yeah,
away by any of it. I didn't love the neomorph, and then by the end, we're back to your pretty classic xenomorph design.
I will say this particular film did something that was disturbing in a way I wasn't expecting, and that is seeing the xenomorph, or the neomorph for that matter, stand upright like a person
Yeah.
is maybe one of the like most chilling images in this film.
Oh yeah.
It's it's nothing like too dramatic, and it's just an image that will stick with me of just like, ooh, those look real disturbing if they're just standing up straight.
Yeah.
And cool that this movie did it, but it doesn't like change
It's
anything
in
else
the
about the film.
trivia, and this doesn't matter really to the anything, but this was the first film made after the death of H.R. Giger. Was pointed out. That once again, he didn't work on it or anything, but it's just it was of note that this is still using obviously some Giger imagery, but he had
Well,
passed
and
away
there's
this
clearly some inspiration taken in terms of like when you're walking around in David's workshop and there's all those like real weird messed up drawings of like what he did to Elizabeth Shaw in there. And
yeah. I do want to talk about, of course, as always, about the box office. We'll talk about where it places for the year, but I will say box office on this was not good.
no,
It grossed a total of 240.9 worldwide on a, let's see, what was the budget here? $97 million budget. So that's,
I mean,
but here's the problem, of course. 74 US.
oh boy.
It opened it opened number 2, smashed apart its opening weekend by the second weekend of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah. Turns out those Guardians films, they're a wrecking ball.
The movie then, the problem was, what is this? It ended up being pulled from 1,100 theaters in its third weekend.
Oof.
Yeah, it like just it opened second and then just plummeted, just kept plummeting.
Just no legs at all.
No, this thing just and luckily it did okay enough to not like get people fired, but
it made its money back at least to a certain extent. Though I don't know,
it
like
dropped
that budget estimate probably has to be real low, right? Like between all of the other like ads and like marketing campaigns, considering the amount of mini webisodes we got on top of this,
it dropped 70% first to second weekend.
Yikes.
And then another 62% third weekend. It went from second to fourth to sixth.
You're going to ask me how it ranked over the year.
I'm about to ask you how it ranked for the year. Where did it? So I said 240. Now, once again, we're always talking about worldwide, because I think that's fine. That's how you got to look at a movie, obviously. But even worldwide, okay, yeah. Where did it rank in the top 200? It made 240.8.
I feel like that cracks the top 100.
Yes.
I don't think it cracks the top 50.
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
What a year. 31.
They wish. 40. Yeah, 40th. Top grossing movie of 2017, no surprise here. Star Wars The Last Jedi, 1.3 billion. Here's where, once again, kind of surprising top 5. I think people forget just how huge this was. Beauty and the Beast, 1.2 billion.
Yeah, you can't underestimate those live action Disney movies. They always do way better than you think
many of them have made over $1 billion. It is a thing where people go like, why do they keep making these? Look at how much money they make. You may not like them, but everybody's going.
because they're a known quantity family feature that people can take their kids to because they know what the original was. So clearly
I
they
do
wouldn't.
think us not having
know.
children is key in like our bafflement of these, because there is sort of this
Yeah.
idea about, look, there's a new version of a thing I grew up on that I can share with my kid that is different
Yeah.
than me showing them an old movie on Disney Plus. Fate of the Furious is number 3, 1.2 billion. By the first 4 movies made over $1 billion in the top 5. Fate of the Furious, I said 1.2 billion. Despicable Me 3, 1 billion.
Can't underestimate those minions, man.
And then number 5 was Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle.
Hey, Jumanji. I like those new Jumanji.
I really enjoy those new Jumanji movies, and they just announced the release date for the 3rd one, so I'm excited.
Cool.
I enjoy those. And then it's interesting though.
2017 seems like the year that set the unrealistic expectations going forward that have made people freak out ever since.
The fact that 4 movies made over $1 billion, and Jumanji made 962, so damn close.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, though. You would think with the massive success of the MCU, but those are all in the second half of because Spider-Man: Homecoming, Guardians, and Thor: Ragnarok all opened in the 800 and change $1 million vein.
Man, but if they're not making over $1 billion, are they even worth making?
Well,
John?
I think a really interesting thing to talk about here, let me just briefly get on this, was, of course, the reaction to, oh my God, Justice League. What a fucking disaster, right?
But it made wasn't it like 850?
Not quite that, but 661, and was the 14th highest grossing. That's still pretty fucking good.
Yeah, but you've got X-Files syndrome in films these days, right?
Yeah.
I say that because many shows after the rampant success of the X-Files were held to that same standard in terms of ratings. Same with Friends. Friends did the same thing to shows.
Yeah.
Is if you weren't doing numbers like X-Files or Friends, were you even worth producing? And so you can have something that is wildly successful by a more traditional, wide view spectrum of these things, and still have studios consider it a failure because it's not living up to the most successful thing ever.
Well, let me go. Is it the next year, 2018, that Solo comes out?
Yeah, and that's considered a wild failure, even though it's like the 7th highest grossing film of the year or something.
Yeah, it's 392 worldwide. What was the domestic on it? Yeah, it's crazy to me that, domestic. Well, it doesn't matter. It's sending me to modern. But anyway, it's just, it's that thing where, once again, what are your standards for this?
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of articles written about Red One, the Christmas movie with The Rock, and people are like, God, is this the end of his career? And then other people going like, wow, did really well. And it's just analyst by analyst opinion.
Yeah.
We're even going like, wow, Amazon's really happy with it. They are? We thought this thing bombed. It was the end of The Rock's movie stardom. No.
And you know what the answer is? There is no answer.
Nope.
Everything is random.
I mean, really, the answer is exactly that, which is the studio happy with it? Then fine, whatever. Right? All right, let's look at some highs and lows for Alien Covenant before we get out of here. This comes to us from Freddie J 888-2002.
You love a name with 6 digits at the end.
Nothing like it. Here we go. This is a low review. Titled the review, "Not Just Disappointed, I Am Angry." Sorry, I just love the grandiosity of this. I started going to the movies when I was 8 or 9 years old.
I grew up in Portsmouth, Oregon.
I am now 71 years old.
Oh my.
My oldest daughter and I have tried to get to the newest movie every weekend for the past 35 years. Well, I will say that's its recipe for failure. If you're just going to whatever's new, there's going to be highs and lows to that inherently.
I love that this person has connected with their offspring in such a way that they have shared movies together for 3 decades. That's wonderful. Go on reading this drivel.
You know what? Start there because, okay. When watching movies, I never complain about the actor or actress in the movie. My concern is the writer-director of the movie. Acting now is like working at McDonald's when I was growing up. There is so much money involved in movie making that with a few classes, young people can make a living in the movie industry. I have a nephew living in the Grandpa Simpson rambling of this review, I really enjoy.
John, this is a 70-year-old. We have to respect our elders.
Yeah,
on IMDb.
I have a nephew living in L. This is actually not because when this was written, but I was going to say my father is 71 as of the recording of this. He doesn't talk like this though, but I have a nephew living in L.A. that started right out of high school working with a crew that puts sets together for movies and TV. He even got credit at the end of some of the movies he's worked on. Amazing that a person can get credit for putting furniture on and off a set. I put in my summary that I was not just... All right, back now to the movie. I put in my summary that I was not just disappointed in this movie, but angry. I'm not angry at the movie, the actors, the CGI, or the director. I think that I am angry at the movie industry for allowing this kind of crap to be put in the theater. I'm angry because I actually paid money to see this piece of crap. I'm angry because Ridley Scott promised so much more. I thought that Prometheus was actually pretty good despite its flaws. It was a movie about possibilities, and that is what science fiction is for. The possibilities ended when the mentally ill android destroyed...
I love the term mentally ill. That's so good.
That's the greatest description ever. I mean, I do. Just the writing of this is amazing. When the mentally ill android destroyed the engineers, I am now done with this series of movies. There is no more story to tell. A mentally ill human, Wayland, created a mentally ill android, David, who created xenomorphs that killed humans. That's it, folks. The story is over. No need for 2 more pieces of crap like this. Thanks to Alien Covenant, I am done going to the movie theater. Wow. Not only soured this guy in the franchise, soured him on film. I will not pay another dime to go to the theater. We movie lovers are being abused by the movie industry. I have told you a better story in less than 1,000 words than this piece of crap told anyone on planet Earth. Ridley had $97 million to tell us a better story, and he didn't. If you have not paid to see it, don't pay to see it. Wait until it comes to your streaming device and see it for free. That way you won't be disappointed or angry. Please forgive the rambling. 1 out of 10 stars.
Okay. This guy endured films like 2011's Highness.
Yeah.
And yet Alien Covenant is the Danny McBride movie that broke him.
I got some chuckles out of your highness. I had a chuckle or two.
There was a Minotaur penis. It was hilarious.
I will say... Oh, wait a minute. Can I just... Because one of the things I do love to do, and I don't often read them on here, but I will look up somebody's profile just to see what else they reviewed to kind of get a sense of it. Just a few months later in 2017, there's a heartwarming end to this story. His review of Thor Ragnarok titled, "Great Movie, Hollywood Loves Us Again." Thor Ragnarok turned him back around on movies. Yay! Taika Waititi.
Oh boy. And in a few years when this guy's about to turn 80, Love and Thunder will sour him yet again.
Sadly, his reviews dry up in 2018. I worry about what that means for him. Yeah, they kind of stop. Where he was, though, once again soured on movies by the Mark Wahlberg vehicle Mile 22. This is what they call a movie nowadays. It's actually
okay.
All right, that's it.
All right, Grandpa, time to go.
Yeah. Oh dear, with this man from Boston in the lead. All right. Okay. Let's switch to somebody who really enjoyed the movie. I mean, you get your classic, like, you guys didn't get it. A lot of that, right? Come on, man. Okay. Here we go, though. This comes to us from Mark 338 and then a bunch of other numbers. I'm not going to keep a bunch of them. Anyway.
We know that he is a Mark. That's all we know.
This is a Mark for sure. Title of the review, "A Difficult Transition Made to Look Easy." When an Alien prequel was mentioned all those years ago, I don't think anyone expected it to look like Prometheus. We all expected romping aliens, as per the original H.R. Giger design. Because if there's one thing Giger's known for, it's his romping.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
weird verb in there. Anyway, throughout with face huggers flying through the air, what we were given was an unexpected story, a very different alien, and a space jockey which did not live up to the expectations of the original 1970s film. Prometheus was very much a dull affair, desperately trying to tell a story which just wasn't there. Or so I thought.
Oh no.
This really surprised me because the idea that somebody wouldn't like Prometheus but then be turned around by this one.
Alien Covenant retroactively makes Prometheus a better film.
Alien Covenant is a wonderful sequel to Prometheus, which expertly tries to explain and bridge the gap to the original Alien. The first act is well paced, very relaxing after the initial encounter with the space. I too found this very the nap I took during the first act of this movie. I'll tell you,
So refreshing.
yeah, getting us used to the crew and laying the groundwork for where the film was to go in many ways that did mirror the original Alien, which I believe would be a very clever idea, as this makes us think of the original while holding on to the story of Prometheus and hoping for a better future. As you will see, the main theme throughout is how this film links to not only the prequels, but also to the original Alien movie. During the trailer, we see a scene in the shower with two of the cast. I was very worried at this, as it reminded me of creepazoids, gratuitous breast shots, etc. And my fears of a bad scene were alleviated early on. This ship is a colonization ship full of thousands of humans in stasis and hundreds of human embryos. We then learn the crew are also married or in a relationship with each other, which would make sense when colonizing a world. It would obviously be a one-way trip, and for mental and social ability would make sense. So, in short, the shower scene would be understandable. Really,
the shower scene happens in the last 10 minutes of the movie.
It really does, and it really isn't that gratuitous. It's also, I think, very trying to. I mean, obviously, when you have somebody killed in the shower, you're obviously feeling kind of psycho-y, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of the what's the word? It's one of the few moments where like a kind of playful Ridley Scott is in the movie.
Well, and as soon as you see the two of them in the shower together, oh well, they're dead.
Yeah, no, yeah. And also, I did like that kill actually. Jesse Smollett does get the alien tongue right through his head, which was cool.
The inner mandible. John.
There you go, the inner mandible. Sorry. Anyway, I got to get to this guy's essay. When a prequel comes along, the most difficult transition is to make the equipment look older than what we thought was modern back in the 70s. This is where many prequels fall apart. Alien Covenant had the same issue, although there is some modern-looking equipment, technology, etc. Ridley Scott had the foresight to use the sounds from the original Alien and Aliens to compensate for the more modern-looking set. This also worked to yet again link this film to the original Alien. The crew initially became infected by the alien virus through the ear and nose cavities by a very similar organism to that of Prometheus. What about the face hugger? You will find out. Although there is a new way for the alien to be born, the first is violently ejected from the back of a crew member. You may have seen that in the trailer. At this point, one of the crew are covered in a spray of blood. I would presume they were not aware of this, just like the original Alien movie, Ridley taking a dark approach to method acting. The second is violently vomited up. Very different ways of immersion, very different to Prometheus. However, this is expertly explained, which goes to show there was a lot of thought given to the story and also to link from Prometheus through to the original Alien. We do see a chest burster and a face hugger. Yet again, this is all very well considered in the film, which again provides a great link from Prometheus to Alien. The first aliens we see, yes, there are two, are reminiscent of the one from Prometheus, a far cry from the menacing alien that Giger thrust upon us in the 1970s. But thankfully, this is yet again explained very well, and David, he has survived, has continued Weyland's mission to become the human. It just wasn't made to be. Because that's poorly written. David has continued Weyland's mission to become the human he just wasn't meant to be. I don't know.
So becoming more human but failing in the attempt. I don't know.
I guess, yeah. Through modification and gene splicing, David has created the first face hugger in an egg, resulting in the terrifying alien we've all come to love and fear at the same time. Towards the end, we all know David is David and not Walter, but there's compelling evidence that it really is David as he helps to kill, or I think he means Walter, as he helps to kill off the one true genetically modified alien. As Daniels goes into hypersleep, we sense the concern about Walter, but why would it not be him? He helped her kill off the alien and protect everyone. Only as the hypersleep pod closes, Daniels gets a glimpse of David behind Walter's eyes, and there is nothing Daniels can do but go to sleep. Then he talks a little about the attention to the original sound effects and original alien for linking purposes is outstanding, and this deserves far more credit than it has actually received. It does prove how much of a forward-thinking visionary Ridley really is. The cinematography is outstanding, and Catherine Waterston provides a Ripley-style character to yet again ease our transition into the next prequel. 10 out of 10 stars. So this guy's whole thing is just like, there were things I recognized from the later movie. Good prequel.
Well, if that's all it takes, then all prequels are good.
Yeah, this guy, I know. What's this guy talking about? Some prequels don't work out. This guy is just like, look, that sets up that thing. They've done their job. Oh man, there you go. Though that's your highs and lows for Alien Covenant. It's not good. It just doesn't. Both of these are misfires in similar ways, but I do actually think I'm more heartened by Prometheus just because that's trying something. This is trying to have it both ways. This feels more cynical to me.
This feels a little more cynical. It also feels a little just sound and fury signifying nothing is the phrase that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like it is ultimately a failed attempt at bridging a gap that didn't need to be bridged. It's Ridley Scott howling to like force this creation into existence. It's the studio saying, no, this is a commercial enterprise. And where the twixt do meet, we create this fissure that is Alien Covenant that like feels neither one nor the other.
Come one all, see art versus commerce as a movie.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah, you can literally see the film fighting within itself. Prometheus, he had pretty unrestrained, creative control, but the movie wasn't well thought out. This is that, like, can I continue those themes, but also make the studio happy? And it's just kind of a bummer to watch as a result of that.
Yeah, I think it is easily forgettable. I'm probably not going to remember the
fact that both
ins
of us
and outs of the plots.
had forgotten it in the last 7 years. I will forget it again, I'm sure. It's just, aside from, once again, a man acting his ass off in Michael Fassbender, one of the greatest living actors, really.
I'm sure there's a YouTube compilation at this point of just like Fassbender acting bending. While you could watch and just go watch that. Yeah. It's worth it.
I mean, that guy, or like I said, there's so many other great performances he's given in other movies that you should check out. So go do that because the guy is really incredibly talented.
What? Yeah, I'm just, my mind is still boggled by the idea that like the plot of this movie, and again, as written, David is the one who has created xenomorphs. How does that get us to eggs in an engineer ship at the start of Alien?
I mean, I'm gonna look to see if that script is out there anywhere because they did write a script for what would have been the movie set on LV-246.
Yeah,
I'm just curious. How did that movie?
If engineers are involved, then maybe that's a way. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah. Well, they would have because the space jockey has to end up there because that wasn't the planet that they land on in Prometheus. Prometheus wasn't the planet from. So then, I would be very curious how that works. Anyway, next week,
all of it doesn't matter because they're gonna know Hawley's just throwing it out the window.
Oh, he's tossing that shit out of there. Well, let's talk about another movie that will ultimately not matter. I think probably. We've seen a Predator. We've seen Predators. But next week we meet the Predator.
Oh.
Yeah,
cool.
Finally.
This is the one I haven't seen. So.
Yes, that's right. You haven't seen this one. I was lured to the theater because I'm gonna be real bummed again next week when we talk about one of my all-time filmmaking heroes. As you know, Shane Black is everything to me, and so much of what I love it was defined by him. And not only star but uncredited writer of the original Predator movie. We'll also talk about where Fox got too involved in this thing as well. So as always, I'll leave you with the tagline here, which is, "The hunt has evolved."
Oh,
Yeah.
Dramatic drums in the distance.
Yeah. Now the poster is a predator hand holding a severed predator head, implying are predators hunting each other?
What?
Yeah. Oh boy. I think this is gonna be a fun. I'm kind of excited you haven't seen it because I can't wait to talk to you about the gobbledygook of predator mythology in this movie.
I'm just gonna get angry at the lore, aren't I?
I think because it's muddled, it's dense. It's just it's all
Okay.
it's all over the place.
Can't wait.
And in between, there's a Shane Black movie where people are zinging each other.
Oh, well, I look forward to the brief moments where that movie exists.
Yeah, those are the best moments where you're like, oh, I like the moments where all the guys are just ragging on each other because Shane Black writes that dialogue really well. But those are few and far between, unfortunately. Despite, once again, another great cast. We continue to be disappointed. Things are going to get worse before they get better, is what this whole thing is.
And then in 3 weeks, we'll get to Prey, so okay.
Yeah. All right, but that's going to wrap things up. Of course, if you're so inclined, and please do go check out our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/punchup, and there you get cool exclusive bonus content, including the bonus episodes of this show, IP Squad related cases, where we are talking about, as we've said before, movies that are at best homages to the Alien and Predator series.
We don't use the word rip-off unless it applies.
Yeah.
And in one case, it absolutely does.
It definitely does. But that will be, so head over there. You always get cool bonus content from all the shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network. And of course, there's another way to enjoy all our podcasts. Gergoni, tell them what that
YouTube?
is. YouTube. Have you heard about this YouTube?
Yeah, you can go to YouTube.
Yeah, go to YouTube. YouTube.com/.
YouTube.com/@punchup entertainment, of course.
Specifically,
because while you're there,
that's where you're going to get the good stuff.
Yeah, that's where the good stuff is, because there you can find all of our shows on the Punch Up Entertainment Network. And while you're there, please like, comment, subscribe, let us know. What did you think of Alien Covenant in the comments below? I don't know. I think it's a harmless movie if ill-conceived, but that's just me. It's forgettable, and that's its biggest sin.
Yep. Just not worth getting worked up about in any direction.
But let us know what you think down below, because we love to hear from you.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it. Until next week, the case file is closed.